Got it. All right. Well, good morning or afternoon, everybody, depending on where you're joining us from, and welcome back to White Sands Self-Care Group, where we provide education, resources, connection, and collaboration to support you on your self-care journey. Now, I'm pretty sure we all know today we're in a pretty fast-paced world, and a digital one at that. And if you're a small business owner, most likely you have been drowning in a sea of platforms, apps, everything to try and make your business run efficiently or better. You're probably getting overwhelmed, anxious. Some people are getting frustrated with it. Others have found it's been a huge, waste of money. You buy into platforms, maybe you're using the free version, but if you've bought into the platforms to use these, then a lot of times you wind up wasting your time and you wind up wasting your money. And it just, kind of becomes just really taxing. So I am excited to let you know that I have a solution for you. This man has saved me in so many ways between technology and business. And I thought it was only right to share him with the rest of you because he is truly amazing at what he does. He can have hacks, tips, tricks, you name it, to make your life easier with technology. So I would like to introduce you all to Craig Tomanini. Most of you might know him as ASKCRAIGTEE or as his company that he's branded, ASKCRAIGTEE. He is the technology business coach. And I love it because he makes everything so simple. He can break it down and understandable at your level. So Craig, tell us, a lot of people, computers and all the technology is just overwhelming. It's scary. Some people are afraid of it. What drew you to it, or how did you even get started with all of that?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on, Laura. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about what I'm really most excited about, which is technology and how to help other people. So I actually got involved in information technologies from a corporate standpoint, kind of by accident. When I met my ex-wife, I was actually in law enforcement and I was in the military and finishing up my career there. She didn't want me to be in that field. So I decided to stay married and got out of that field and jumped from law enforcement into a manufacturing job, actually at a plant on the East Coast. And they had a job come available for the front office. I hated doing the job I was doing in the plant. It was very physical. It was carcinogenic, materials, and just not a good situation, not a long-term plan by any means. Really good money, but not a good job. So this job opened up in the front office, but you had to have this particular certification, and you had to be able to do what's called 10 key. You had to be able to do the 10 key data entry thing, because that's what it was, a data entry clerk position. But in order to work in the front office, you had to have this new bleeding edge technology credential, which was called Windows, wait for it, 95. And so I just dated myself, but it was super new at the time. And so I went and took like a CLEP course for this outside of work so that I could bid on the job. And I got the job, and that was really my first step into kind of like office work and working with computers specifically. And then, of course, fast forward over time, Windows 95 became 98, and then there was, Windows XP, and then there was Windows 2000. And so I actually wound up staying in the Microsoft track, believe it or not, for a long time, and became one of the first Microsoft certified systems engineers in the country. So I did that. It opened up a lot of doors for me, and I wound up moving to Colorado with my ex-wife so she could be closer to family. And I took a job in a customer service position at a web-based email company. In fact, the first web-based email company. So everything that you guys know of, Gmail and Hotmail and Yahoo and all those things, they were actually the back-end mail engine developers for Netscape Navigator when that browser was really popular, back when Google didn't even exist, right? There was a search engine called Dogpile back at the time. So anyways, I get this job and I go in there and they tasked me with building out their call center. At the time, the call center was 2 folding tables and 7 chairs and a couple of push button phones, and there was no switches or routing or anything. And so I took that call center from a 7-person thing to about a 28-person call center in about 6 months' time. And one of the things that we did there was started to implement PBX switches, server-based phone systems, and we kind of evolved through. It's implementing ticketing systems like Remedy. So anyways, all that to say, I was a geek from the minute I started that 10 key position. I found it really interesting that, businesses just use technology in whatever capacity they had to, but no one was really focused on what technology was doing for business. And I think I was kind of in tune to that right from the beginning.
Yeah, we have some similarities, but when I was in school, I was actually writing programs, and I will date myself because the last language I wrote in was COBOL, advanced
Oh,
COBOL,
yeah.
which, is way old. Wound up working jobs, and I've done those 10 key, entries, so I can, relate to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I love computers still, I'm familiar with it, but when you have stepped away from it and done those other backbreaking jobs like you were talking about, and then you come back, it's like,
Why
wow.
would
I
I
mean,
do
there's so many
that?
platforms out there that just blow me away. And you have to watch, because I think a lot of us get caught chasing that next shiny object. It might work really well for that person. That person's introduced you. So you've paid for this platform and you try, but it's not working for you. And then you go here and, some of us are paying for platforms, some of us are not. But I know you can work with people as well, and like take a hard look at what they have and figure out what you need and what you don't need and get it trimmed down.
Yeah,
So
one of the things that, like, at that same time I was at that company, how I got over to the kind of the IT side of things and really into the computer side, I was asked to take a position after customer service in the corporate training center. And that really is what exposed me to what the company was developing, their technology, that web-based mail engine platform. And so I started getting exposed to that. And one of the things I realized right away was that as a trainer, you had to be able to break it down to people, right? Even in the customer service department, and certainly across the sales force, which was who I started training more often, you had to be able to explain why the technology worked and what the experience was for people when they use it. So I really got inside the head of the user right away for me personally. And then I was like, okay, well, this is how people should approach technology, because otherwise, like you said at the top, it's really frustrating. It can be overwhelming. And people's, tendency with anything that's painful is fight or flight. I'm not gonna do this, right? And so then you go spend money and then you wind up not using it just because you don't know how. So I really, I really focused in that training position. And then as I moved into IT, my first position in IT was actually quality assurance, which I knew nothing about. A friend of mine was in that role, and he said, hey, because we had this culture as a startup, he was like, hey, I'm naming you as my successor. You're going to be the quality assurance manager. And I was like, never been a manager, don't know anything about quality assurance, sign me up. And so I go to this training and stuff that he puts me into, and because he's like, don't worry about it. And I get into that role, and it became very obvious to me that same thing was true in quality assurance and on the IT side of things, programming and build management and system admin type stuff. Most people struggled because they didn't understand how things worked and why they were put together the way they were, breaking up pieces of code and doing unit testing versus end-to-end testing, and just all this stuff that fell into this realm that I'm now responsible for as a quality assurance manager. And so I don't know, I guess I just kind of took that all the way through my career. It was always, well, what's the impact to the user, right? How is someone going to actually experience this software, this very acidic, ones and zeros kind of a thing? How do you, because it's funny, we struggle with technology. We want it to be warm and fuzzy, right? We want it to give an experience, right? We've talked about this before. We want it to feel good, but yet by its own very nature is not designed to feel good. It's very regimented, it's mathematical and systematic. And so how do you take something that's that and make it feel good, right? And so I've never been much of a feelings person per se, right? But I have them. So I figured it was good to understand how it affects me. So I started really taking an approach of my job, in my career, to everything that I did, finding a way to make people understand it. And so that they could understand it at their level and have it feel the way they want it to feel for them. So whether it was someone using software that they bought, or it was someone who was designing software for people to use in another way, I always was really focused on how would you explain this to the person, how to use it. That's always, And still today, that's very much how I function with people. I want to try to break it down so you can consume it, so you can be knowledgeable on it, and so you can get that emotion, that feeling part from it, because technology is becoming very much that in the world that we live in now, with all of the things that are happening. The buzzword now, of course, is AI, right? At the time of this, that in and of itself, coupled with machine learning, the very nature of what they're trying to figure out is how to make it emulate us, which is scary, but they're very close. There's the ability to learn and to have predictable response, and short of the feelings and the emotions that are simulated by that, I think it's designed that way because I think that people designed it so they want it to be more like us, which is kind of interesting in a way.
And they've actually been working on that for years. Back when I was doing the college course and doing research and stuff in 2017, 2018, that stuff already existed overseas, where they're already using, the whole people that'll come greet you and put your tags on your luggage, or follow them. They'll show you to your, they've had that stuff going for years. And I think it's like anything else. People are either really terrified of it or they kind of embrace it. I don't know if we have too many that are in the middle. I think it depends on what information you feed yourself. I'm not saying you don't necessarily need to be cautious, because yes, there can be a lot of bad things that have happened to people, through computer and digital, whether they've been scammed or hacked. There's always hackers, figuring out something else, but there's a lot of good to it. And
I think it's like anything else. You touch on a topic I've been doing a lot of studying on, right? I read an article a couple 3 weeks ago, and it was AI is a product of the devil, is what it said. And it's very like, okay, I'm reading this. I want to learn more about this, And so, but it went on to really talk about how, technology, no matter what the technology, of course they were talking about AI, but no matter what the technology was, that I appreciated this guy's perspective. He was like, it's not the technology that's evil, it's the consumption of the technology. Who is it that's using it, and what are they using it for? And it's like all the way back to the basics of money, right? The Bible says that the love of money is the root of all evil. It doesn't say that money is the root of all evil. It says the love of money, right? So the love of AI is the root of all evil. Maybe that's what we need to say here, right? It's not that AI is evil. It's just that the love of it is evil. Maybe, I don't know. But how do we consume it, right? I think it's really important, right? Your topic as an expert is all about self-care. And there's so many things around technology that you have to be really, really cautious of, mindful, right? How much am I consuming around technology, right? How much time am I spending with my face in this thing or on the computer, right? That's not good for you. There's been extensive scientific studies. So as a technology guy, I try to caution too and say, look, there's a balance. Don't find yourself, and I'm one of the worst offenders of it. I mean, with what I do, I'm in technology 18 hours a day, probably every single day. So how much of that is affecting my, my brain cycles? And, because I also am trained in that area too, from an NLP standpoint and emotional intelligence. So I know that these things, they give off EMF, and it's not good for you,
It's not.
So I could easily jump on that and go, oh my gosh, technology's bad. But then there's the other side, right? Like you kind of touched on at the beginning, and there's so many good applications for technology, right? It's like anything else, anything in moderation, right?
Right.
If you find a way to leverage technology, and we've talked about this, where it doesn't completely take over the user experience. It doesn't make you lazy. I've done videos, on social media where I talk about, the implementation of technology because you're lazy. Well, that's a character problem. You have an issue with your character. That technology is not going to fix what's broken about you personally. So if you have a kind of a messed up attitude or approach to life and work and things like that, you're going to be more inclined to leverage technology for the wrong reasons. And I talk about this a lot because people are generally lazier, right? We're less healthy, we're heavier, we're not mentally, where there's more mental illness. All of these things are kind of connected. So I'm not really advocating very well for myself here from a technology standpoint, but I want people to know the other side of the coin too, right? Technology can be great to help your business, but you have to also have that balance to realize that there are certain things that are better for you, right? Instead of being on your device all day, go out and play ball with your kids or something, go for a walk with your spouse, because those things are going to be inherently more healthy. And then they make you appreciate the technology, and the technology should give you the time and the availability to go do those types of things. So I know that was
Yeah,
like
and shut it off, put it on silent so that you're fully present for your family. No, don't be sitting there, checking it all the time. We've made it so easy, but for most of us, and nowadays, really, it is a necessity. Unless you want to be a recluse and live in the mountains and not have anyone track you or do anything, you're using some form of technology.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, it's just like computers, garbage in, garbage out. If you're
exactly
gonna
right.
put garbage into your perspective or anything, you're gonna get garbage out. It's the computers work the same thing. Computers aren't any smarter than the people that programmed them.
That's exactly right. And like this weekend, I had a retreat that I hosted, and one of the first things I said to people when they showed up, we're up in the mountains in Colorado, right? And of course, the property we're at had Wi-Fi, which was actually disheartening to me. I was like, I just want to go unplug that. I don't want people to get on it. And the first thing everybody asked me when they walked in, is there Wi-Fi here? Is there Wi-Fi here? And I was like, yeah, there's Wi-Fi here, but you're not going to be allowed. In fact, you're not allowed to bring your devices to the sessions when you come in. I want you to be completely engaged and off of technology, right? Because we're not talking about technology this weekend. We're talking about other things, in here. And so I want to focus on what's in here and what's in here. I don't want to focus on what's, in here. What's in here doesn't matter. It'll still be there on Sunday when you leave, But it was the hardest thing because everybody was like, well, can we connect to the Wi-Fi and then, so we can get on it later? And I was like, okay, but just don't bring your devices to the sessions. But I watched, and throughout the weekend, by Saturday afternoon, everybody had their phone at the table. And so it really, that's what I'm saying. You really have to be focused on, how much it controls your life. And as a business owner, right, we're in the space that I'm in as a technology coach and trying to help businesses, of course, I'm encouraging people to create, efficiencies through automation and leveraging technology, so that their business can be more fluid in the way that it runs, so that they can have more time not to be on their device, so they can get out of the house, so they can have a weekend to themselves and know that their business is still going to be somewhat on cruise control while they're gone. And when they come back, it'll all still be there and managed for them. But I think people are missing the mark there. Like you said, it's too easy, to just go, okay, well, now I have more time, right? I met with a client yesterday for our session, and he said the same thing. I said, it sounds like maybe you're getting off track with your time management. Let's take a look at your calendar again. And we popped his calendar open, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, I don't know, based on what I see, it looks like you should have all kinds of extra time. I'm like, why are you not getting these other things done? And he was like, I'm in the scroll hole. He's on his device.
I was going to say, did you know, if you look at the settings in your phone will tell you how many hours you spent on a game, how many hours did you spend on it tells you how many hours. And that can be an eye opener, because some people don't really realize how much time a day they're losing to being.
Do you know what the average is right now?
I'm sure it's high.
It's almost 18 hours a day is the average across all cell phone users.
So you're sleeping maybe 6 out of that, which isn't healthy to begin with.
And you're sleeping with this thing, 8 to 12 inches from your head on your nightstand, which is emitting EMF, which is not healthy for you when you sleep. Your brain has to rest when you sleep, right? That's the time for your brain to stop processing. When it puts out EMF, it's actually stimulating your brain. The frontal cortex of your brain is awake. And that's why people don't sleep well at night. I take my phone and it's in the other room. I've started doing that a few months ago, because it's just, I'm not going to answer my phone anyways. I silence it at night. So if anybody calls me or messages me, you're not going to get me. So if you're not going to get me, why do I even have it on? Why do I even have it in the room? So that I can reach over and touch it first thing in the morning? That's a bad habit too.
Well, and I am guilty of that, because we don't have a home phone. I got rid of that mess. So, that's the only way that I have. And I have mine on silent too, from 10 p.m. to the end of my, I just mute it, because until my self-care time is done in the morning, I'm not unmuting my phone.
That's right.
I might miss a call. I might see something come up, but with the losses in the family and stuff that we've had, in case my mom does call or something's there, if I peek at it and I see it and it's something emergency, absolutely. Yeah, I'll get up and get it. But other than that, it just sits there. And sometimes I have to set the alarm. I'm pretty regular at waking up in plenty of time before we need to go somewhere. But if we do need to go somewhere earlier, that's my alarm.
Right.
So
all that bad to say, right? Technology can also be really, really good, for, like I said, time management, knowing exactly where you have to be, do what you have to do, having certain tasks in your business automated so that you don't have to physically be at the keyboard doing certain things, right? Sending out emails, automatically. Certain things technology is really great for, and so if you're not implementing those things, it's kind of the other side of the coin again. It's, how much time are you spending at work, right? I mean, there are still people in the world that work 12, 15 hours a day, right? And then they go home, have a couple hours with the family, pass out in the recliner, get up at 4:30, start the day over again, right? That's not any more healthy. So finding that balance using technology. And when I talk to my clients, about technology as a business coach, the reason I call myself a technology business coach, by the way, is because I focus on business process probably equally as much, if not slightly more, than the actual technology part of the equation, because most people need to find those operational efficiencies, solopreneurs especially, that are trying to figure out the game, right? They spend a lot of time trying to figure out what is it exactly that I'm going to do, right now, an hour from now, 5 hours from now. And they spend a lot of time trying to map it out. So if you don't know what your business process is first, technology will never help you. So I speak a lot about technology and the gaps, right? What's your business process and how do we lay technology on top of it in the gaps? That's my thing. I spent a lot of my career in IT focused on continuous improvement and process improvement initiatives, because that's where most companies have two outputs. One is cost, right? How do I improve a process in order to save revenue or save cost or increase revenues, or both? Or it's around productivity and time, right? So how do I get the most out of my staff, my workforce, in terms of improved process? And so I focus a lot on those things because a lot of people, that's where they need the most help. A lot of business owners, they get this spark of an idea. I was talking to someone this morning. They're like, "Oh, I want to create my website and my business cards and my logo." And I was like, "That's great. I'm so excited that you're excited about the idea and you have this visual. Totally document that. Get it down on a piece of paper somewhere. But you have to know how you're going to do business first. You can't focus on the pretty parts of the company. You have to focus on how you're going to make money." And a lot of solopreneurs, entrepreneurs that are starting out, they spend so much time in that creative space because it's easy, right? Where 80% of us are visual. It's so easy for us to go there, and it's fun. I mean, let's just be honest. I love doing graphic design. I love coming up with the marketing stuff and the creatives. And while not everybody's that way, that tends to be where the owner of the business goes initially, because it's kind of, like I said, it's easier, right? But if you don't know position one on how you're going to start the process to make money, right? And I know everyone hates talking about money, right? Not everyone. A lot of people love talking about money, but the people who hate talking about money hate this part because they want to do the thing that helps the people, and they want to just go through that. And then they look back 6 months, a year later, and they haven't made any revenue. And the business either isn't really a business or they're out of business, right? They've spent thousands of dollars to try to put technology in place when it wasn't time. And that's a big part of what I teach people is, when is the right time to implement technology? What is the right technology to implement, right? So I spend a lot of time looking at business process because I think that's important. And then we can move forward and make decisions from there. Everybody wants it faster. They want it instant gratifications, the way the world has gone. But I'm here to tell you that even though technology can provide some of that, you have to be a business owner first and take your time and understand how you're going to operate. Then you can find where technology comes in and creates those operational efficiencies.
Yeah. And like you said, the good and bad, and I know you and I have discussed it before because it's kind of controversial nowadays, but the Chat GPT and the AI, where you were telling me that you were just like drowning and you're like learning all these things. You spent a lot of time in it. And I didn't necessarily use it for that, but I thought it was just, for me, wow, an eye opener, because I always have so many thoughts and so many things that I want to do, but I can't, I struggle, and I spend a lot of time trying to put it in the right kind of wording. And the fact that I can just put what I think in there, and that thing just makes it very efficient and eloquent. I was like, "Oh, that's done. Okay, moving on." I just saved myself a lot of time.
And see, that's a right use of a technology like that, though, right? There are so many people that are spending time in AI, as an example. For me, I spent a lot of hours, hundreds almost of hours, learning the platform because I'm a technology guy and I wanted to understand how I could better consult my clients in that space. So that's why. But I checked that under the growth and personal development category in my schedule, right? So I wasn't really wasting time. It was planned. That's just what I chose to do in that
Research
time.
and development for you.
That's right. It was. It's growth. Because as a coach, as a technology coach, I have to stay at least 3 to 6 months ahead of everything else that's going on. So while you're playing with ChatGPT, I'm already looking at the next thing. I'll tell you what it is another time. But I'm already looking at the next thing, because in a few months there's going to be a couple new emerging technologies that are going to come out in the artificial intelligence, but more on the machine learning side, that everyone's going to get really excited about. But I'm spending my time there. But the way that you used it is appropriate, because you're right. There are places like I used it a couple of weeks ago. Someone asked me for something for a speaking gig that I had never created. Like I had my speaker sheet and all that, and they wanted a specific summary of the topics that I spoke on. Now I have the list of topics, but I never wrote a summary for it, right? So I went to ChatGPT and I said, write me a short 2-paragraph summary about these 3 topics. And I listed them, prompted the system the way I needed to. And I said, it can't be more than this many words, because it was going into a form. Spit it out. That's the right way to use a technology like that, right? To make you more efficient, right? It's not that you couldn't sit down and write that. It's not even maybe that you don't have the time. Maybe you just, like you said, maybe you're just not as eloquent of a writer, right? And you want it to sound a certain way. And some of the things that are nice about AI and ChatGPT is that you can actually prompt it with a tone. You can tell it to write more aggressively or more persuasively or more confidently. You can be sad, you can be happy, and it'll adapt the tone of the output that way. And so knowing how to do things like that, though, that requires an investment in time. But for someone like yourself, who's a solopreneur, well, I love watching how people are using it with social media postings and things like that. I have a friend who's a musician who wrote a song. He generated lyrics with it. And he said, I want it to be in the key of D, and I want it to have like a blues jazz kind of a feel to it. And it rewrote the lyrics a couple times to adapt to what he wanted to do. And he went to the studio and he recorded it. It gave him the chord chart. He's like, what's the chord chart in the key of D? Boom, 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 boom. And it gave him the chord. It wrote out the music for him. And he went in and just played it. And it's kind of cool, So there's ways to adapt technology. And the way you're talking about is very smart.
Well, and as a client of yours, that's what makes you so invaluable, because it saved me a lot of time.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I know it can save a lot of people a lot of time between the hacks. I mean, the simple one the other day when we were talking, which we'll talk more about that in a second. But I'm getting ready to launch a TV show, and I'm trying to conversate with speakers and line up speakers. I was getting frustrated because everybody's got theirs in nice, neat looking paragraphs, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. If I hit enter, it just sent the message.
Mm-hmm.
All I had to do was hit shift and enter, which you told me. I was like, well, okay, that made it. I mean, just it can even be the simplest things, but make your life, so much easier, because you want it to look nice and professional. You don't want it to look like this whole run-on glob.
That's right.
But if you don't know how to do it other than type it in Word, copy and paste it in one of these things, which is a longer, slower, painful method.
Right. Yeah, it's those exact things that you're keying in on that I've built AskCRAIGTee off of, right? It was I tell people AskCRAIGTee is an educational services organization. Yes, I'm a coach. Yes, I'm a speaker, but I also do classes and facilitate workshops. I have a video production element to my business. I have a content creation team for social media, right? So all of those things are there, but they only work if I'm able to, as an output of my business, educate people, right? So I say I educate business owners how to leverage technology to scale their business. That's my I help statement, right? Everybody has an I help statement. But the way that I do that is exactly those little things, right? I take all of this experience I've had over 30 years. And honestly, I sat down a few months ago and I wrote out in my journal the things that I take for granted from a technology standpoint. It was an interesting exercise. And it was things just like that. It was like hotkeys as a general topic. If you don't know how to use hotkeys on your Mac or on your PC, you're basically wasting time. If this thing, I hardly ever use my mouse. I use my mouse to find a position on the screen, and then it's usually hotkeys from that point forward because it's just faster for me, right? And I can do little things that are cool and that are just available through hotkeys. So I wrote it down as a topic, and I wrote down things like, in a word processing program like Word or Google Docs, right? Knowing how to, again, a hotkey, Control B or Command B, and bold a piece of text instead of having to go look for the menu that has it in there, right? Or inserting a table and being able to do Shift Control I and know that it's going to insert a table, right? And then, so all of those things, I was like, wow, I'm like, there's so many things that I know that I just take for granted in my normal day to day. So I started writing those things out a few months ago, and it's what developed into my next curriculum that's coming out in July. I won't shamelessly plug yet. But it's exactly that information. It's like, why does a link work the way a link works? What is the internet really? What does HTTPS mean? What does that mean if you don't have an S there for the user? Again, back to the user experience, right? What should a website look like? How do you do copywriting, right? Like, all of these things are super relevant. And even though they're not necessarily directly technology, they're the inputs to a technology platform that you get an output from. So, how do you write an effective social media post, right? What does hashtagging have to do with anything, right? Like, people understanding those strategies empowers a business owner to take control of what they're doing in their business without having to hire a guy like me, which might sound completely opposite of what I would be wanting to do here in saying, don't hire me. I want you to hire me to teach you. And then eventually I don't want to have to work with you anymore because you have the base knowledge that I have from 30 years condensed into a period of time that you can now walk away and actually run your business on your own. That's my mission as a business owner, is to empower business owners to be able to do that for themselves. It's really important. And back to your initial comment too, everyone chases the shiny new thing. They get frustrated because they don't know how to use the technology. You are a perfect example of that. You're a case study. How long have you had Groove before you started using it, right? And so you have this technology and you're paying hundreds of dollars a month for it, or you pay this lifetime license.
Oh, no, I paid a lifetime. I don't pay
monthly.
Yeah.
but you spent thousands of dollars on a piece of software and you weren't using it, right? And it's frustrating because you're like, I spent the money and it's sitting there, but I don't know how it connects together. To me, it's more advantageous for me as a coach to teach you how to use that. And there might even be a little learning curve. And as there was with me, with Groove, we can figure it out together because I have the ability to reverse engineer things and talk about things, even if I've never seen the platform, because of my experience in developing software and testing software over the years. So, that's really my goal, is to focus on that kind of education piece when it comes to my company. And everybody in my organization, they don't work for me, they work with me. And the people here, they get to consume and, be dripped on all the time of my knowledge. And I want them to take the things that they're learning that I'm putting out there, so that they can start implementing. My video team, the person who runs my video team, she uses AI to generate shot lists and to generate, questions. When we go out, we do interviews and things like that for social media content. She gets all of that stuff from AI, right? I could easily say to her, hey, interview me about this, interview me about this, interview me about this, but then I would know the answer. And so what makes the content really great is it's coming from the perspective of another person who actually doesn't know anything about it. And They get those questions and ask me a question. And now that content really adds value. And when she interviews me, I'm completely caught off guard. It's like doing a podcast. When someone interviews me, I'm like, whatever we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about. And I'm just going to have to know my stuff, right? So anyways, I think that was a big ramble.
Oh, that's okay. I know you're good at that, but you're right. That is a perfect example, because it was 2, maybe 3 years ago when Groove first came out and it was in beta. And so, but one lifetime for not paying a monthly, not paying a yearly, yeah, all on board. But it was in beta and certain things weren't working. So in the meantime, I needed something. And then I had someone get me into MLSP, which then I had to create an Aweber, and then I had to do this, and I didn't have a CRM. And I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
I'm like, no more, done. Some of them I could do for free, but other ones I had to pay for. And, when you had done that one training about, technology and business leadership kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, we need to talk, because I know I have multiple platforms, not even sure which ones I really need. And the way you're able to put them together to say, well, this will do that. Maybe you might have a platform that you don't even realize it's capable of doing this, and you think
Yep.
you need another platform, but you really don't.
Yep.
And
It's true.
contacts. You created me a Google contact thing that just boom, dropped it in an Excel sheet. Was it fancy? No, but if it's under the gun, it worked. I didn't have, I mean, we have it now, but I didn't have a whole CRM thing built up with lists and all that. I never had one.
Yep.
And so for me, that was just, it's been very life-changing, and it's been wonderful. And that's why I thought you should be shared with everybody else. And I know we have a special link we're going to be sharing with everybody so that they can work with you. Do you want to tell them a little more about how your packages, or how your technology coaching and stuff works for them?
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for letting me do that, because that's really special. And I know, I mean, like, I'm glad this is being recorded, because it's like a huge video testimonial from you. I've really enjoyed working with you, and continue to do so. My coaching programs, I try to make them very simple. I think the common thread through all of it is, like I said, it's education. So I like to meet with you first, find out what your situation is. Like, a lot of people will say, I want to find out what your needs are. I have a lot of experience with my clients. Most people don't have any idea what they need. So I sit down with you, and we really just have a conversation and find out where you're at, find your pain points. My wife would call it how to get you off the struggle bus, right? Like that kind of a thing. And once I have that as a picture, that really helps me do a really quick assessment of where we should work and how we should work together. And I can work with you from as little as 6 weeks to 6 months or longer. And I break down my programs that way. All of my programs have a focus on business process, like I mentioned. All of my programs have a focus on when it's appropriate, where to introduce technology, and to do an assessment of the technology you have. So I think one of the ways that I would kind of answer this too is it kind of depends on where you are as an organization, as a company, right? I tend to focus with two different groups: the 0 to 3 year, solopreneur, entrepreneur, that's doing, $0 to maybe $500,000 in revenue, wherever you fall in that spectrum. Because that's one very unique approach to working with someone. It's more business development focused. The other side is, that $500,000, really from $1 million to $10 million in revenue. And these are organizations that have, somewhere north of 300 employees on up. And in that situation, I have a very specific assessment process that I put people through. They take the assessment online. Their entire workforce takes that assessment online. That gives me a bunch of data that I can generate a report for them, and we can sit down, usually the owner of the business or maybe an HR executive. We sit down and we look at those reports together and say, these are the top 2 or 3 things that kind of bubble to the surface from a technology standpoint from your workforce. And so then I'll go in and I'll usually do a half a day or a full day of training on site with that organization. So that's obviously a lot more higher end in terms of cost and that kind of a thing. And it's a different focus versus working with the solopreneur and the entrepreneur. My programs are not super expensive though. People tend to have just the right amount of sticker shock when I let them know how much it is. But that's what it's supposed to be like, because you got to have a little skin in the game too. And frankly, my time is valuable and I know what I'm worth. And that's your first piece of coaching for your people watching. It's know your worth. Don't ever sell yourself short. Laura knows, because we've talked about that a bunch of times. But I would love to talk with people if they want to message me or whatever. Laura has my contact information, and this link that she's going to share will get you directly to me. But I would love the opportunity to talk with people and see if I can help you, for sure.
And wonderful. And I will tell you, I do know he can help you. He can break things down and meet you at whatever level you're at, whether you're very experienced with computers or not so experienced. He's very willing to dumb it down into language so that he's not hitting a bunch of terms that just went straight over.
And I don't say dumb it down. I say I meet you where you are.
Well, meet you where you are. Yeah. Yep.
So, and honestly, right, the people who know a lot about technology, sometimes those can be the most challenging clients to have, because people know what they know, right? But when you work with someone who's kind of like, teach me, I'm an open book, those are my favorite clients, because then everything is at play. Like you said, we could look at a system and go, hey, did you know that this even does this? And you're like, oh no, I didn't know that Groove had a CRM, and so then we can
Yeah.
get in there and start breaking it apart. And, like those types of examples for me that's where I really like to play. I like to work with the smaller group, believe it or not, because they're the ones where you see the bigger results sooner. So.
Yeah, I always told people, it's like, there's not much damage you can do unless you've hit save. You can always hit the back key or back up or find stuff. There's always some little frustrating things. I know I had that when I was building my website in Groove, because the page had like timed out, and so I brought it and refreshed. I thought, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know it brought me back to my home page, so it wasn't the page I was working on, and next thing I know, I had changed the other page.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But it's lessons learned. Once you learn that, you don't make that mistake again.
and that's definitely a message I want people to get too, is technology. Like one of my one of my commonly quoted messages is technology can be challenging, but it doesn't have to be hard, right? When you do it, it's like anything else, right? To me, going in and doing CrossFit would be super hard, right? Like I wouldn't want to go try to learn how to do that. But if I did, I also know that the same thing is true. Like if I go in there and just start doing it, I learn the right techniques and I practice at it, it gets easier. And technology is the same way. So just get out there and play with technology. Seriously, there's really no damage you're going to do. It's not like you're going to bring down the internet. You might screw up your web page or something, but you can always undo that and you can go make it right. It's just ones and zeros at the end of the day. And for that analogy, in case you don't know, like a light switch is a 1 and a 0. When it's on, it's one thing. When it's off, it's another, right? That's literally computers and technology.
That's binary language. I was going to say, and unless you've written computer programs, people aren't going to know what ones and zeros are.
Yeah, ones and zeros is your light switch. It's on and it's off. It's on and it's off. This is a light switch. It's on, it's off. One zeros. So super simple stuff. But you don't have to know all that. But play with it and get comfortable with. Like I often point people towards things like Canva, right? Again, back to that visual. But guys, Canva is technology, right? Graphic design is a technology. Computer automated drafting, CAD programming, that's technology. Things that are creative and visual are still technology. I had somebody recently tell me that graphic design is not technology, and I took a sticky note like this, and I said, so if I draw a picture on this and I crumple it up and I just throw it at the computer screen, it's going to turn into a digital image somehow. Like you have to have something that's going to turn it into. So it's technology. So if you're using Photoshop, or if you're a video person, you like Adobe Premiere, maybe you're a contract writer at your job and you use Adobe Acrobat, PDF Sign, and all that stuff. That's all technology. And if you're great at that, then you're great at technology. And you need to celebrate the fact that you're great at that technology. And if you learn that, you can learn anything. If you're great at spreadsheets,
celebrate your wins, celebrate what you're good at. And instead of saying, oh, I can't do that, or I'm too stupid for that, tell yourself, how can I do that? Or I am smart enough to do this. Change your wording, because that's,
or I need help. I need help learning how to do that.
Exactly. Or I need help. I got a technology guy for you.
You're right, exactly. So very cool.
Well, it's awesome. Craig, thank you for taking the time and speaking with everybody. And to the audience, I hope you all found this useful. I know I always do, because I even learned a whole new thing about Control B. Didn't know I could do that either. So I've already learned another new nugget. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you have not noticed, I have a new banner behind me. It is Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. That is an online TV show that I will be launching the end of July. I am in the process right now of interviewing speakers to get more valuable speakers for you to learn. And I have created a new YouTube channel for this, a new Facebook page. So I would love it if you guys would, I can put those links in as well, but I would love for people to start subscribing. So as soon as we launch this, you're going to be alerted to when there's a new interview or new content. They're going to go live. Should go live July 24th at 1 p.m. Central Time. So this has been my new project, my new baby, to bring more value to our group. We're just going to go a little higher scale, because this is going to be streamed on E360 TV, Achieve TV, Amazon Fire, YouTube, Android TV, Apple TV, got all of it covered. So
Which is all technology, by the way, all
and it is
technology.
all technology, which means I need the tech guy. Definitely need the tech guy. So if there are topics or anything, any realm of self-care, we do everything from emotional, practical, professional, everything in between. If there is something that you're struggling, a topic that you would like to know something about, please message me or put it in a group. This is a free space with no judgment. We want to provide the best quality people that we can for you to help you on your self-care journey. So remember, self-care is not selfish. It's essential for a healthier you. And we will see everyone next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Bye-bye.